so disgusted with the story about the car park she left.
Oh no, I don't know who Chloe is. Hi, Chloe. Yeah, go ahead. I'm not sure if anyone else is coming, so.
No, that's fine. Do you want me to do an intro?
Yeah, you can do a little intro for me.
Okay, guys, this afternoon, Ceri is going to take us through some cueing and coaching clients through exercises.
I will.
Take it away.
Take it away, right.
Good. Hang on a minute, is that good? Can I get feedback?
Okay, you did very well. Okay, sharing my screen. Massive apologies for my lack of, oh wait, why can't I make this bigger? I wouldn't say that my slideshow is particularly exciting, but let's see how we go. Play from start. Right, cueing tips. So I'm just going to be talking through some cueing tips, what are cues, and then how we can make little changes to make things a little better when training clients. So what are cues? So coaching cues are little snippets of information that are given to help someone perform a task. So these can be broken down into verbal, visual, and tactile. So these are the main ones that people use in training or coaching any kind of movements or exercise. And at the moment, because of the current situation, with most sessions being done on video online, we've lost tactile, obviously, so you can't help someone get into the position. And then visuals actually become a lot more challenging as well. So normally when you're in the gym and you're trying to demonstrate an exercise, it's a lot easier. When you're suddenly over FaceTime or like using Zoom, sometimes you can't, it's like quite awkward to get into the right position, or like to fit yourself in the camera to make sure that your laptop's at the right angle. Equally, you might not have the same equipment as your clients. So some of my clients will have dumbbells and I don't have dumbbells, I have kettlebells, but even then that changes how the demonstration looks. So verbal are the best ones to use, and these are just a few tips you can help. Equally with tactile cueing, I try to avoid using tactile cueing too much. I find that sometimes coaches can rely too much on tactile cueing. And here are a few funny examples of where tactile cueing can go a bit wrong. So sometimes I feel like coaches can rely a bit too much on using tactile cueing. So I prefer using verbal and then visual. Sometimes I will use tactile cueing if I'm trying to get someone, say if they are really, really struggling and they're up here with their shoulders, I'll just say, okay, I'm just gonna, and I'll just like gently put my hands here, or just, okay, I'm just gonna put my hands in between your shoulder blades and this is where I want you to squeeze. So sometimes it has a place, but other times it can be a bit too much, okay? So we're going to be looking at different types of verbal cues. So there are two main types, internal cueing and external cueing. So internal cueing is where the focus of the attention is on the body during the movements. So it's where you're focusing on a body part. So examples of this are extend powerfully through the hips. So you're getting the client to think about the hips, or squeeze your shoulder blades together. So you're trying to get the client to think about the individual body part. And external cueing is where it requires focus on the intended movement effects on an implement or the environment. So an implement could be the barbell, a kettlebell, or the floor. So examples of this would be, so push the floor away, or another one is like trying to shave your legs with the bar. So not thinking about your body, but thinking something outside. And these are different types of external cues. So action, and this is exploding out of the block, push the floor away, or peeling your back off the floor. So it's the action that you want the client to do. But you can also use analogies, and I really like doing this, and I use these quite a lot. So here are just three just examples of one that I would use. So if instead of saying, so an internal cue would be, okay, I want you to squeeze your shoulder blades together, and an external cue would be, so imagine you're trying to hold a 20-pound note between your shoulder blades. So it's just using an external focus for the same, so trying to get the same, so you're still trying to get your clients to bring their shoulders back, but just changing how you say it. So another one is, imagine you're holding an egg under your chin. So instead of just saying keep your chin tucked in, it's just another way of saying it. And then this one is, imagine you've got hips, and imagine your hips have headlights. I want them pointing straight ahead. So instead of going in and using like confusing terminology or client might not understand, that's quite an easy one. So they might not know what an anterior or posterior tilt is, but everyone knows what headlights look like, so you can just use that. Does anyone have any interesting ones that they use with their clients that they would like to share?
I feel like the ones that I use are rude.
Rude? What ones have you used?
I feel like it might be more of a reflection on my clients than me, but it's making me look bad, I think.
Okay.
Lots of like, I don't know, maybe it is my fault. I get like anything that makes them laugh tends to stick more.
Yeah.
So like twerking for like pelvic movements is one that I go to all the time. So if like, because the idea of me delivering a twerking class is just ludicrous, right? So I think like even the mere suggestion of that can turn like what could be quite a dry topic of like pelvic rotation or pelvic tilt into something they actually remember and then like enjoy doing. So yeah, I've used that quite successfully as a cue. But like I say, they're all rude. So.
Well, I've got a rude well. I've got a rude one as well. I've just remembered. So to get people working from their glutes more than say doing a bridge, then I ask them to imagine someone putting their hands underneath their bottom and like pushing it up.
Yeah, that's a good one. So there's loads of different ones, and I also find so I haven't learnt these from a book. They're either ones I've come up with myself that have worked with a client, or I've heard other people use. So at SIX3NINE, it's quite good because I don't spend a lot of time in the back office, or you'll watch other people train, so it's just quite good for picking up. So if you work with other coaches, I just think that's like a really good way that I've picked up different cues, or I've heard one, but that's like, so it's shaving your leg with the bar. That's one that I picked up from working at SIX3NINE. I was like, oh, that's quite a good one. Instead of just saying, okay, keep the bar close to your legs. So shaving your legs with the bar is just one that I found was just quite a good one. So looking at a little research. Okay, so this is just a couple of studies showing the benefits of using external cues. So the top one, this was looking at force production during the isometric mid-thigh pull, and external cueing showed a 9% greater force application in comparison with internal cueing. So instead of saying, so they use push into the floor instead of just tensing your legs, and that showed a 9% greater force application. So it shows that even the language that you use and how you coach it can impact how well something is performed. So that one, yeah, greater force application. And then another study was looking at standing long jump, and when external focus was used, the average jump distance was better as well. So they jumped further than when using an internal focus. So results suggested that providing instructions with an external focus enhances jump performance. And there was loads of other studies. So there was a few that were done on looking at things like a golf swing, explosive movements, balance, change direction, speed, and continuous skills such as running or swimming. So why is this? And so having an internal focus can interfere with the body's natural motor system organization. So it's kind of like you're getting your clients to overthink too much. So yeah, it can disrupt the flow of your body's natural ability just to do a movement. So especially if it's quite a explosive or quick task, it kind of breaks down and disrupts just your body's natural ability to do a movement. So yeah, that's the theory behind why external cues work better. Okay, right, now I'm going to have a little look at retention and how well things are remembered. So I actually don't know where I got this from. I'm pretty sure I read it somewhere, but then I couldn't find where it was, but it's something like this. So nothing is truly taught until it is learned. So just because you've given instructions doesn't mean that it's been learnt or remembered from your client. So just because you think you've taught something well, if at the end of it they still don't know how to do it, like it hasn't been effective for them. So you feel, oh yeah, that's great. And your client's thinking, well, I just don't really know how to do it. So it's always, you need to look at your clients, whether they can do the movement or they understand what you've tried to teach them. So retention of learning is broken down into acute and chronic. So acute is looking at short term, so within a session, and chronic is longer lasting. So can they do it without you being there? And this can be looked at using retention tests. So these studies here looks at internal and external cueing. So this one looks at slalom ski movements, and they found that an external focus led to not only more effective learning, but also in a retention test 2 days later, they performed better. So it showed that they actually remembered more than when they were given internal cue focus. So it just shows that like using external cues can help people remember more. This one here looks at balance in older adults. So quite a lot of the studies were done on athletes and like younger generation. So this one here looks at whether external focus was also good for older adults or older clients. So the results demonstrated that they performed better. This was looking at a balance test as well. And they performed better in their balance test in their retention. So it just shows it's also beneficial for older adults as well. And then this final one was looking at children. They were able to pick up learning backhand quicker, and then they also performed better in the retention test. So once again, they were just able to remember things a lot more. So yeah, just like more benefits of using external than internal cues. Any questions? Or is that all good? Fab.
No,
right.
that's really good. Really.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just, so I always think about this when I think about things that I still remember at school and when I was learning to revise. And the things that I remember the most are the ones that I, like when you learn something as a song or you learned something with a rhyme, they're the ones that I still remember. Just because I sometimes think like the sillier something is, the more it sticks in your head. So maybe that's why the external cues work a bit better. Okay, and these are just other tips. So this one here is looking at the different language use. So just a few tips I've picked up. So try not to show off too much when training a client. So clients already know that you're clever. They've come to you because they know that you know more than them. So don't show off and use lots of language that they won't understand. I've been in gyms before, you hear people using terminology that their clients won't understand at all. So just try and keep it quite simple. So thinking about the instructions, does your client know what it means to retract or depress or what an anterior tilt even is? So no one likes feeling stupid. If your client's coming in, it's their first session and you're giving them instructions, they don't even understand the instructions that they're getting. It's kind of setting them up for failure already. So it's just always trying to keep the instructions really simple. You can build on this as you go on, but that's just some like a place I always like to start. And then finally, just looking at the muscles and the bones, are they really needed? And this is just one. Levator scapula is one that I just always think when learning this one, I thought it sounded more like a spell than a muscle. So do clients really need to know all the muscles and the names of them? For some people, they really enjoy it, and in which case, like, go ahead, try and coach them. Some people love learning about the body, but other people, they've got busy jobs, they're really quite stressed at work, and you're just giving them like a lot more information that they need. So my dad calls his quads the front hamstrings, which is just quite a funny one. But so, oh, Ceri, how do I stretch my front hamstrings? I'm like, Dad. But like, he literally doesn't care as long as he knows how to stretch them. He doesn't need to know. Okay, so it's just try and keep it simple for the client. Okay, so the next one is looking at the volume of cues that you're giving to a client. So just an example, if you're trying to teach someone an exercise, you're saying, okay, chin tucked in, ribs in, squeeze the shoulder blades, neutral spine, squeeze the glutes, push your knees out, and don't forget to smile. It's just so much information given to someone at one time. So no one likes to feel like they're a failure. If you overload someone with too much information, they're not going to remember it, and if anything, you're just going to confuse them too much. So just pick one or two of the most important cues, and it doesn't have to look perfect the first time. Even if it does look pretty bad and their shoulders are up here but their back looks good, just focus on that for the moment, and then in the next session try and address the next thing. So it doesn't have to look perfect the first time. It's something that you can work on. Or giving someone a shit sandwich. So giving someone, say, something they've done well and then something that they haven't done. So you say, okay, that was really great tempo. Your shoulders were up here a little bit, so let's try work on that. But overall, great jaw ball, great foot positioning. So make sure that you tell them what they've done well. So reinforce the good cues that you've used, and then maybe just focus on one or two things that they still need to work on. So this is just really important for building rapport as well. So if you're trying to teach someone new exercises, it's most likely going to be at the start of their process with you. So if they come away feeling like they haven't done a very good job, it's just not very good for building rapport with your client. So yeah, I was just trying to start quite easy. Which leads me on to this one. So don't set a client up for failure. So it's always better to start easier and then progress. So these are just like a few exercises that I've kind of plotted along the line. So like, first of all, you might want to start with someone's postural awareness, and then do glute bridge, box squat, goblet squat. And then up here it's snatch or clean and press. These are like a lot more complex. So like I said before, no one likes feeling like a failure. If someone was coming in and you were like, okay, we're going to start with an overhead squat, and then they were really bad, you were like, oh, okay, now we're going to go to a goblet squat. That they'll know that they haven't performed well, and then you're going backwards. And I know this because I've done this before. I've given someone a kettlebell swing. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do some kettlebell swings. When they, looking back, I was like, oh, I probably gave that to them a bit too early, and then we've had to regress. And then I feel awkward, and they feel awkward because they feel like they haven't done it very well. So that's just another last little tip. It's always better to start a lot more regressed and then gradually go up. And that's it. Woohoo! Sorry, I think I whizzed through that. But now we can just have a discussion. How do I stop sharing?
Thanks, Ceri. That was really good.
That's okay. How was that? Cool. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a bit of a question about like the external cueing. Do you tend to use like external cueing when it's verbal of real objects or imaginary stuff? Because I've found like different success with different, like if it's push your knee towards that thing that's actually there, that box or that wall, versus imagine there's a set of headlights. Like sometimes I've gone down the imagine there's a set of headlights and got the like, what are you talking about? Look, and then backpedaled hard.
I think that just comes, like, you can have loads of different cues for one movement. So what works with one client, they might pick up straight away. So your client might have never driven before, like it's even like knowing what the cue or the focus is that you're trying to give. So some people might not, what am I trying to say? They might not resonate very well with the cue that you've given, but for someone else, they might pick it up straight away. So it's just like, there's not like a magic cue that will work well with every single person, but the more that you have in your locker, the more beneficial it is. So you can pick up, so you can try use different ones. That's why I said training with other trainers is really good, because you can use all the different ones. Like Josh's one, when he's teaching a deadlift, he says, like, imagine there's a mirror on the floor, like look at yourself. So everyone knows what a mirror is, but for some people that still might not work very well for them. But yeah, that's what I just say, like, just try and work with other people or pick up different cues. So, or if there's a movement in particular so this is just a drill that we had to do at uni when trying to teach the Olympic lifts, was break down all the different movements and then section it out into what you're trying to get them to do, so the internal cue, and then we had to come up with external cues for it. So if there are movements that you're maybe struggling with, or ones that you use a lot, maybe just break the movements down and then just like just have somewhere like a little book with loads of different cues, or if you've heard one or one that has worked really well with people, just like write that one down. So when squatting, instead of saying like trying to keep the weight through the heels, don't be on your toes too much. One that I learned is, imagine you've got grapes underneath your toes and you're trying not to squish the grapes. And that's just one that I always use, and that works quite well for people. Or say, wiggle your toes, imagine you've got grapes, and then people automatically will put their weight more through their heels. So it's just like that, and you can just write them down, so you just have a big backlog of cues. So.
Yeah, that's super useful. I jotted down a couple of notes as well as you were talking. I think that I assume that most of what you were talking about was actually cueing to improve movement. But I don't know what your thoughts on cueing to like control session intensity and things like that, because I also use like I'll change the tone of my voice quite a lot, or the speed that I give cues at, in order to like try and get someone to do something a bit quicker.
Get someone. Well, yeah, I think that would definitely, if you have a very like soft voice and very relaxing, and you.
I don't know about you guys, but like that's what I hate about some yoga. It's like I'm in agony, and it's like, and just breathe gently and feel the stretch, and I'm like, I'm dying, I'm literally dying, shaking, dripping sweat.
This like in my front room.
Masochistic sort of yoga teacher who's trying to persuade me that I'm like, that everything's like yin and yoga, and I'm like, I don't. It's so mismatched that it puts me off. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, it's the same as when they get you to relax in a downward dog. It's like there's absolutely nothing relaxing about a downward dog. Absolutely nothing. And they say, just relax into it, go into a resting position. And I'm like sweating one out, my arms are shaking, and I want to go home. But they're just like, no, relax into it. I'm just like, that doesn't float my boat.
Yeah, but then imagine if you were at a boot camp and it was like high intensity and the person's at the front whispering at you. Yeah, I guess.
I used to do this like terrible cueing. I used to use this terrible cueing technique. So I would demonstrate something, and then I would say, yeah, it's just, something easy like that. And it's something they've never done before. Or it's a really heavy weight. And I was like, yes, it's easy. And they would just be looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's not easy.
Yeah, at the first place that I worked, I got called up on because I used the word just a lot. And I'd say, okay, so we're just going to start with, and then whatever the exercise was, and I'm like, stop saying just as if it's nothing. And it would be like, okay, so we're just going to do 10 laps of the field, and then as if like
it's a way. I think it's a way of like downplaying how bloody gruesome that next exercise is going to be. It's like, we're just going to do 100 burpees, just. And it's a way of like sneaking in the fact that you're about to make them do something that's really uncomfortable.
It's a sales tactic.
Yeah.
It's just a small charge for setting up the contract.
I used this one with one of my clients. She's like 18. She likes to drink a lot of wine, and I was trying to get her to do like a very quick drop with her squat. So I said to her, whatever cueing I was using before, it just wasn't working. She wasn't getting it. So I said to her, imagine that you just dropped a bottle of wine and you're trying to catch it before it hits the floor, and she nails it. And I use that, and I've used that cue ever since, and she hits it every time, and it's just like it's glued in. So yeah, with alcoholics, mention wine or some sort of alcohol, and they will be good as gold, is what I've found.
But that's, just showing that some work really well with other people. But if you had someone that was teetotal that never drank before and you're saying, catch that bottle of wine that they don't care about, they probably would go really slow, or they just be like, eh. So yeah, I think it's just like knowing that different things work for different people.
Yeah, I think I liked what you were saying about frequency as well, because I think I've been in class environment and then where I've been in the class, and then I've been teaching one-to-one, and I think you see like the difference in volume of cues, like in a class, just like constant narrative of cues the whole time. So if I miss one, I might pick up the next one or the next one, and so that you get a class of 25 people eventually doing something correctly. Whereas, like you say, you might miss with a few cues. Whereas in PT, it's like I've seen class instructors come over to one-to-one and carry on with the same volume of cues, and exactly what you were saying, like just completely overwhelm the client. Like, well, which one do you want me to start with?
Yeah.
But also like timing of cues. I've seen some like cueing like mid-explosive exercise. So like just as someone's about to do like an Olympic lift, and I saw this in the gym just around the corner I used to have a membership at, and it was like the guy was just got the bar off the ground, and it was like, think about your foot position, and the guy just completely bailed the lift because he was like, what, like looked down at his feet, and so I think timing as well is like massively key. And I think the other thing with timing is probably shutting up. There's a time to not keep cueing and just let your client, and I used to feel a bit uneasy with like silences, so maybe used to talk a bit too much. I don't know if you guys have found that as well.
When I was doing my reading, I found a blog that was talking about this, and it was like that awkward moment on a first date where no one's talking, but sometimes it's fine to not talk. I was like, that is so true, when it's just but yeah, watch them, let the clients feel how the movement should be, like especially in the first couple of sessions, because it might even be using a stick or very light weights. They're very likely to do any damage. It might not look very pretty, but you wouldn't get someone practicing with like 50 kilos on the bar. This is like, okay, first time you're ever going to deadlift, it'll probably be with like an 8 kg kettlebell or something like that. So
yeah, I think there's always a benefit of like putting the cue into the rest period and then seeing if it has any sort of impact in the next set, and seeing what their sort of experience of that cue was. It's a nice way of getting it to really stick. One thing I found that it's not really cueing per se, but just with because we're training clients via Zoom or whatever, WhatsApp, I'm coaching a lot of exercises that maybe I hadn't done before because they haven't got equipment or things like that. So the thing that I've used for clients remembering the exercises is, if there's something new, I let them name the exercise.
That's quite good.
And then I put that in their program as what they called it. So one of my clients calls single leg glute bridges the Isle of Man because the flag looks like that.
That's so funny.
I've got a couple of ones as well. I get one of my clients doing sissy squats, and I get him to call them Neo squats, like from the Matrix when he's dodging bullets, and that just seems to hit the nail on the head. And then another one is an older lady. When I get her to do press ups, she can't do the press up, so she calls them splats. I cannot remember the last time I called them a push up with her. I said, right, we're going to move on to some splats, and she knows exactly what I'm talking about. But what's interesting is because she knows that anyway, and she's practiced them enough, she's actually able to kind of stop the splatting. So we might have to come up with another name.
The anti-splat.
Yeah, anti-splat. I've got that with doing clean and press with a kettlebell. My client calls them the cheerleaders. Like that. She was saying, I just feel like a cheerleader. I was like, okay, you can call them whatever.
It's a much more fun way to teach them that.
Yeah, but it's also using the language they use to describe the move. So it's the same as like the front hamstrings comment. It's like, if it makes more sense to them, then we should try and sort of facilitate that rather than having our own agenda of calling them a single leg glute bridge or hip thrust or whatever. They're Isle of Man now.
I think that's
also has
probably
Volkswagens for a like a VW shoulder complex that we do. The Volkswagen, because you go from the V to the W.
Amazing. That's great.
I think it's also useful if you come up with some sort of variation of an exercise, and instead of saying like, oh, it's a squat with externally rotated femurs with like slightly like crunched up feet with a slightly extended thoracic spine, you just call it something else. And I think if you kind of change an exercise a little bit, you just name it whatever, and it becomes.
Well, I didn't even know the names of exercises. Like when I was doing programs, just as part of the daily move that I've given all my clients, there's stretches that I normally do, so like cat-cow, downward dog, going into pigeon, and then there's just like stretches that I'd always do, and it was like thread the needle. I didn't know that. I just then you're just going to bring your hand through there. Then it's like the lizard, and I just didn't know the scorpion. They were just like names of. I had to like look up what they were, whereas before I just demonstrate them and I'm just saying, okay, just do your normal exercise, and they know what it was. But like I've definitely learned different names of exercises. I'd be like, okay, into the twisty one.
Well, the names for exercises are crucial, because what they actually take advantage of is chunking, and it's like a memory technique for remembering loads more information. So you could, as Monty said, like identify the position of all the joints throughout a movement, but it's like 8 pieces of information. Whereas if you get someone to call it a deadlift, it allows them to create a concept of what that is very simply, so they can retain far more information, because it's like a visual representation of all of those positions in one name. So chunking is super useful. I was just going to say as well, I know we've only got 5 minutes to go, but I haven't given up completely on physical cueing. So I've created quite a few ways of clients self-cueing or self-regulating form. So one of my favorite ones is like with dish or dead bugs or anything where the client's got their back flat on the ground, and in order for them to do it well, their lower back has to stay depressed. All I get them to do is attach a band to something over to one side, have the band underneath their lower back. So if it starts to lift, the band starts to slip or pings out completely. And I've done that way more now than I ever would in the gym. I don't know if you guys use that kind of stuff as well, but I found it super useful.
Yeah, I did that this morning. That was because the same thing, you can tie that anywhere. Because before I was saying, if we were in the gym, I'd have my hand under there and I'd want you to try and break my fingers, like push down as hard as you can. But once again, for the clients that did have that, I'd say like tie it to the bottom of your bed. So I've used that one with quite a few of my clients.
Do you think do you guys think it kind of moves outside of the kind of like realm of tactile cueing if you get them to imagine touching something? So one that I use is in similar to that dish hold that you're talking about, Russ. I get them to imagine they've got a ketchup bottle underneath and they're trying to press all the ketchup out of the bottle. Do you think that still becomes like, do you think that's still kind of audible, or do you think that is like a suggestive kinesthetic or tactile cueing? What do you guys think?
I think on the way in, it's auditory, isn't it? But once it gets in there, it becomes a whole mix match of all of them, because in order to interpret any visual, any audio cue, you have to turn it into a picture of what it might look like, and then you turn it into a movement. So I think once it gets inside so long as it works, I think it turns into all of them straight away.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're throwing shit at wall and seeing what sticks, and that's what you're looking for, is whatever sticks.
That
was in one of those research papers that Ceri said, wasn't it? Shit.
Yeah, they did. That was one that they looked at, how much shit stuck to the wall.
Can I just ask quickly, if we've got time, what do you tend to do with people that just are naturally really uncoordinated, and tend to find this if people are very stressed?
So this is one that I've had. I also find it if people have never done any activity ever before. So one guy came in and he's so like book smart, but I wouldn't say never even done like football at school or skateboarding or anything. He just said like never been sporty at all. So his first session, I was like, hey, try and lift your shoulders up, and it was like literally didn't know how to do that. And for me, I think that's like such a simple exercise. For most people it is, but that took a lot of time. And with him, I did have to use some tactile cueing, or I think, Ed, you actually told me this one, is if you try and get someone into the complete opposite position first. So if you're trying to get someone to bring their shoulders down and back, if you try and get them into the opposite position to start, and then they know that trying to just get back to normal, oh, that's the position, and then they can go a little bit further. So that's just one that I picked up from you, Eddie, and I thought that was good.
Yeah, that does sound good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's sort of always like working from, like, let them show you what they can do, and then using that as a really rough starting point. Like if they can't, if you don't think they're able to squat, but they might be able to sit onto a box, and you can just sort of use that as an idea of whether they're using their knees more or their hips more. And then you could sort of say, okay, I want you to try and get up from that box without bending the knees quite so much. And sort of, and then once you figure that it looks a little bit more like a squat, then it might be that you would start doing some squat drills with them. But definitely sort of starting from a position of letting them show you that some of the capabilities that they do have, and then working exercises in once you're sort of confident that they have some of those skills.
Sorry, just quick, less than a minute left. Next week, Ed is going to be taking us through how to win with clients during lockdown. Got it in. So going to send for you, Ed. But yeah, that is it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ceri.
Cheers, Ceri.
Yeah.
That was great.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.